Mr. Kevin Green, going to join me here to get a little quantitative, get a little technical, and dive into some charts. Firstly, thinking about S&Ps and options flow, Mr. Kevin Green, happy Friday. Good morning, sir. As we were talking about with the hosts earlier, just holding seems like it would be a pretty big victory today. But what if we want to go for the gold? You know, like, is there some buying pressure left over?
There might be. I mean, obviously, we do have an options expiration, the quarterly for September today, and it's around $4.5 trillion worth of notational value. Now, some of that's going to be rolling off here in about 2 minutes at the open. So we might see some volatility, obviously, and we have seen a little bit of volatility going into this opening print. And then we'll worry about the PM settled options a little bit later today. Do we have more in the tank? I mean, when we look at the positioning, especially from yesterday, we continue to see institutions rolling up their short calls. Once again, that's going to be a bullish flow there. They do have a little bit more optimism to the upside. So looking at the 5750 as well as the 5800 level, that's where we saw a lot of the rolling activity yesterday, more towards the 5800 level. So that's a good sign. We're kind of widening out. 5700 is going to be your first area of support to try to be able to hold. We kind of approached it, got a little bit close to it here yesterday, but we did see some buyers stepping in for an intraday basis, looking at that 20-period moving average on the 15-minute chart to be able to hold. That has been a key area of support for us over the last couple of trading sessions. And then the negative gamma area is going to be 5620. So I didn't see that much when it comes to bearish flows. There's still some there, but overall, when you're looking at the flows from yesterday, it's tilting bullish for now. And with the lack of economic data, Oliver, today allows us to kind of like settle in, digest everything, and see how we want to be positioned going into the next week, as well as the next month or 2 months.
Okay. So that whole level, that whole area, 5,600 basically up to 5,660. If we are going to come back down, then we got to hold that, obviously, right? Like, that's kind of like the second, far second best. Number one scenario, we ramp up. Number two, we just hold it. Number three, we give it back. Hopefully there's no number four where we ever fall back below those levels again. I imagine that maybe closing a gap is one thing, but if we were to start slipping below 56, then, you know, something's wrong.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Once again, 5620 is going to be that area, and that actually does match up. I didn't extend that megaphone line, but that does match up with the support channel for that megaphone. So we do have some confluence there, and that's the area. I mean, you don't really want to go back and test that even because it kind of puts you back into that range. But if we were to, touch it again, you'd like to see a nice little strong rebound. Break with below 5600 would be a cause of concern here, Oliver, especially once again, we continue to talk about seasonality, and some days it's in effect, some days it's not in effect, but the next 2 weeks is really where we do traditionally see the S&P get a little bit volatile. We do see a crush in the markets, maybe some profit taking being had there.
Okay. As far as the NASDAQ goes, it seems like a little bit more of a kind of interesting spot, arguably, given that it's still so far off the highs, and we haven't really totally cleared that August high. Intraday, we touched above. But it seems like tech-wise, still a little bit more proving to be done. Is that going to be the kind of key question here as far as like how momentous of a rally we get? You know, it's nice to see the other stuff going, but like if it's going to be super intense, like it seems like you're going to need NASDAQ to keep picking it up.
Yeah, and it's testing its first area of resistance right now, Oliver, and I think we're going to need to have semiconductors in particular really try to follow through right now, and it has been a little bit difficult. But when you kind of see these pullbacks, and then you also see the flows or positive flows going into underloved sectors or even cap-weighted sectors out there, if you're kind of looking at industrials, caught a little bit of flows, financials, obviously, regional banks, small caps. So right now we might just be seeing a little bit of a dispersion when it comes to capital allocation for now, until once again we get a little bit of a quarterly rebalance, which a quarterly rebalance for a lot of these ETFs or these passive funds will actually occur at the end of September, so probably another week from now. So that's something to be mindful of. I did want to highlight a couple of things though, because if we are going to talk about Nvidia, I think we need to talk about potentially a leading indicator for Nvidia, and that's actually silver, the commodity itself. And you actually just had that conversation with the gentleman before. I mean, silver is actually making a technical breakout to the upside. We have this inverse head and shoulders pattern that did did take place, and it actually did break that neckline here yesterday. And if we're going to actually see that type of follow through, and you can kind of compare it, and I do have a chart for this, but if you kind of compare it to Nvidia, it's pretty much an 85% correlation between the two, where you see silver moving to the upside, Nvidia kind of does the same, and then also that opposite relationship, silver moving to the downside, Nvidia traditionally kind of does the same here. So if silver is already breaking out of that inverse head and shoulders, Nvidia has not done that as of yet. And silver tries to test or retest those new relative highs here. That could foreshadow that Nvidia is ramping up and potentially trying to break out here.
It's kind of bizarre. Silver and Nvidia. All right. Though right now, I guess silver in the intermediate term a little bit more powerful. It's got pretty clear higher highs, whereas Nvidia hasn't been able to do that in a little bit.
Yeah, and for silver, we have to be mindful it's an industrial metal as well as a precious metal, and silver is used in 90 to 95% of all electronics in one way, shape, or form. So if there's going to be a demand for GPUs, that's obviously going to require a lot of silver in order to do so. You can also kind of see the same correlation when it comes to solar companies and power technology there. And I know that we'll talk about a different story a little bit later here, but that's really the premise. You know, you have the optimism of maybe not a recession here in the United States, maybe that buoys the global economy. And if you're going to have that type of optimism, you're going to see it reflected in silver. And that's what we're seeing right now. And then once again, kind of correlating with that, if demand for silver, the physical demand for silver is going to go higher, that also should lead credence to maybe demand for technological products, consumer products, as well as enterprise products also increasing to the upside. And we know that there is actually a physical deficit when it comes to silver supply if you combine the ETF holdings along with the actual industrial demand that we see from a lot of economic indicators. So there's definitely a story to be had there, and the correlation does make sense, and it's something that I think people should be mindful here moving forward and keep your eye on it.
All right, cool, nice, interesting find. Good stuff. Creative with the charts. Thanks, KG. Appreciate that. Nice look at Nvidia too. Very important stock today. Opening up a little bit red. I like to take on silver too.